Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to explore the world's fastest animals and the absolutely bizarre evolutionary bargains they make. Because if there's one overarching rule in nature, it's that speed always costs something. It is literally never free. So we're going to look closely at the data and the biological trade-offs that dictate how the fastest creatures on every continent push the absolute limits of physics. And honestly, more importantly, we're going to look at what they had to give up to get there. Okay, let's dive right in with an absolute classic, the cheetah. To put it simply, nature basically built a Ferrari, right? But then they bolted on a fuel tank the size of a shot glass. This animal is just a total marvel of acceleration. We're talking 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds, and it does this on legs that are thinner than a broom handle, primarily using its spine, which coils and releases like this massive loaded spring. This action flings its rear legs out past the front, creating these huge strides that stretch over 20 feet. It's just plain physics, really, turning the entire body into a giant rubber band. But there is a major biological catch to this aggressive design. A cheetah can hit an astonishing 70 miles per hour out on the open plains of Africa, sure, but it can only hold that top speed for about 20, maybe 30 seconds. If it runs any longer than that, its core temperature rockets into a lethal zone, genuinely risking cooking its own brain. So the fastest land animal on Earth is also one of the quickest to quit, because the only other option is, quite literally, running itself to death.
Section 1. The high cost of sprinting and the 30-second limit. Section 2. Falling better than flying. The sky's true speed. Now, shifting our focus up to the skies, the Peregrine falcon is widely crowned the fastest animal alive. But it achieves this title not by powered flight, but basically by falling on purpose. During this highly controlled dive, which is called a stoop, the falcon folds itself into a super tight teardrop shape so the air just slips past instead of shoving back. It hits speeds of 240 miles per hour. That's faster than a Formula One car on a straightaway. It steers with these tiny microscopic flicks of its tail. But the cost of this extreme speed is immense air pressure. To survive the rushing air blowing its lungs out, it evolved these specialized cone-shaped nostril baffles. And this brilliantly illustrates nature's genius, because human engineers actually studied these exact tiny aerodynamic baffles to help design modern jet engines. But if we look at actual forward, flapping flight, meaning no gravity assist, just raw muscle getting you from point A to point B, the leaderboard completely changes. When we compare these two modes of flight, it's actually the Brazilian free-tailed bat that shatters all our expectations. The moment nobody is diving, a flying mammal leaves the famous falcon entirely in the dust.
Just look at this number for a second. 99 miles per hour. This little thumb-sized bat, weighing about as much as 3/4 sitting in the palm of your hand, hits 99 miles per hour in pitch darkness. To pull this off, it completely traded the broad, fluttery agility that most bats use, and instead evolved these slender, swept-back wings that slice through drag like a fighter jet. It's so unbelievably fast for a flying mouse that when researchers first tracked them using aircraft and radar, they actually stopped and double-checked their equipment because they genuinely thought it was a measurement error. No way a bat goes that fast, right?
Section 3. Outrunning an extinct ghost. The North American speedster. Back here in North America, the pronghorn is wildly faster than any predator on the continent today. So the crucial question we have to ask is exactly this. Why on earth does a deer-sized creature need to hit 55 miles per hour? And why does it pack a massively oversized windpipe, heart, and lungs into such a lightweight frame when absolutely nothing alive today can even come close to keeping up with it? Why invest so heavily in such extreme biological hardware?
Well, the mind-blowing answer is hidden in its endurance. A pronghorn can hold 40 miles per hour for 7 straight miles. That endurance was built to race the American cheetah, an Ice Age predator fast enough to actually match it stride for stride. But, as we know, that big cat vanished 10,000 years ago at the end of the Ice Age. The predator disappeared, but the pronghorn kept the biological adaptations. It is literally still paying the heavy physiological cost for a race it already won against a ghost.
Section 4. Borrowing energy and how physics pays the difference. Let's jump over to Australia to see how standard physics are just completely bent. The red kangaroo found a brilliant little loophole. It features massive Achilles tendons that act essentially like giant pogo sticks. When it lands, it stores the impact energy right in those tendons, and then instantly flings that energy right back into the next hop. This means that above a certain pace, bouncing actually costs the kangaroo almost nothing extra. It can cruise at 25 miles per hour for miles or hit 44 in a full sprint, which scales to a human basically long jumping across 4 parked cars over and over again. Physics just quietly pays the difference.
Similarly, the brown hare hides a 45-mile-per-hour top speed behind a pretty plain face over in the meadows of Asia. Because a hare never relies on a burrow for safety the way a rabbit does, its entire survival plan is pure explosive acceleration, stitched together with these sharp, entirely unpredictable cuts. It uses heavily muscled hind legs that fire off like catapults to bleed the momentum out of anything chasing it. It's this fascinating creature that looks like easy prey, but runs like a getaway car.
Section 5. Trading Skies and Truth. The Final Costs. Finally, down in the extreme waters of Antarctica, we see that the pursuit of speed requires the ultimate sacrifices. Let's look at the gentoo penguin's adaptations. On land, sure, it waddles, but in the water, it is a literal torpedo, hitting 22 miles per hour. Now keep in mind, water is roughly 800 times denser than air. To pull this off, the gentoo traded flight completely. Its wings stiffened into rigid paddles, and its bones actually turned solid and heavy, so it could power straight down into the dense water rather than just floating back up. It even releases trapped air mid-swim to create this friction-slashing bubble coat. It proves that speed doesn't really care which element you're built for. The penguin gave up the sky on purpose, just to rule the water. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate meta-cost of speed with the sailfish. For decades, it was crowned the fastest fish in the sea at 68 miles per hour. But when we actually compare the legend to the science, that famous 68-mile-per-hour number came from a single fish stripping a fishing line while leaping out of the water. When researchers finally strapped modern accelerometers onto real swimming sailfish, the science showed a top speed way closer to 22 miles per hour. The legendary record is mostly just unproven folklore. So for the sailfish, its speed was paid for entirely in exaggeration. It just happens to have a world-class publicist. So when we step back and look at all the data together, the pattern is absolutely undeniable. Nature basically always balances the checkbook. Whether it's the cheetah risking cooking its own brain for a 70-mile-per-hour sprint, the penguin forever losing the ability to fly just to conquer the ocean, or the sailfish relying on flawed historical data, extreme speed demands extreme sacrifice. There are simply no free rides in biology. I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. We've seen just how meticulously nature compromises to build its fastest machines, carefully balancing speed against heat, energy, and ultimately survival. So as we look at human engineering and our own endless race to build faster cars, faster planes, and faster networks, it really begs the question, what hidden limits and long-term costs are we completely ignoring? Thanks so much for joining me as we unpacked these incredible biological blueprints and keep questioning the mechanics of the world around you.